Don't give up hope.
Don't give up hope.
You're not alone.
What I'm offering is less a sermon and more a meditation. And I'm starting with a story I've told before. As many of you know, I studied in Ireland during the war. It was very intense, and from time to time I was spiritually exhausted, completely depleted of hope. One morning our teacher put us in a van and drove us out to a park. And we got out and he just said, explore, be ready to leave in like 6 or 7 hours, and it was nice. I left my friends behind and I wandered around. I sat on a big rock and I wrote for a while. I got some ice cream. I followed a path through the woods to see where it would lead. The path went on for quite some time, but ultimately opened up. And when it did, I was confronted by astounding beauty. I stopped. There was really no way for me to continue to move. I had been overtaken by the stillness of what was before me. The landscape was so silent. My motionlessness was the only appropriate response. The park, it turned out, was Glendalough, and what was before me was the majesty of 2 mountains and this clear, motionless lake that lay between them. Earth, teach me stillness. As I stood silently, others came up behind me on that same path, and each one stopped as I had. I think our resistance to moving came from this profound respect for the lake and the mountains that stood still in that spot for millennia. We were demonstrating reverence to the gods of the mountains. It was a moment of veneration, which was, as you can expect, ultimately broken by some children who ran up the path behind us and then around us. But once it was broken and we all started to move, I sort of made my way closer to the lake and I sat on the sand right before it. And I just let the water, I let the mountains, I let the stillness heal me. Earth, teach me stillness. My time living in a war zone was particularly intense, but I've lived in other kinds of war zones. I suspect that we've all had versions of war zones in our lives. Are there places in your life that you feel that way? Places you need to feel like you have to put on your armor before entering? Places you have to be armed and ready? Our planet is a difficult place. I wrestle with this reality, wanting so much for things to be different. I have a friend, a really, really good friend, someone I love so much, who lives in this radical compassion. She just refuses to allow her life to hurt anyone. No plant, no animal, no person, no ecosystem. She has dedicated her life to love and defense of the defenseless. She doesn't eat meat. She doesn't wear any clothing that came from an animal. She doesn't kill bugs or rodents in her home. She's a congregational minister who fights for fair labor laws. She's on the front lines of the move to liberate the people of Gaza. My friend's response to suffering in the world has been to lay her body down before it, really to do anything she can to stop it. She has said to me, if I could stop the climate crisis with my own death, I would. And I'm sure that's true. I admire and love her. And so many activists, friends and colleagues who confront profound institutionalized pain and still embrace life with tenderness and compassion. Earth, teach me suffering. Earth, teach me caring. In the face of all that's happening in the world, my concerns, my own personal thoughts can seem small, right? I might worry about money sometimes, but I'm not worried that my child will starve to death as part of a campaign designed for maximum suffering. Humility, by definition, means knowing your proper place. Standing before the mountains in Glendalough, or confronting the suffering on this planet, I am humbled. I know my very small place. Earth, teach me humility as the blossoms are humble with beginning. Some of you know I live in the woods. Really both a country mouse and a city mouse. My house has a lot of property. I really live like in the middle of nowhere. But with all the things growing, I have discovered that it's nearly impossible for me to grow anything. I used to live in a tiny little house with a tiny little bit of property, and it had gorgeous gardens. But somehow, in the house I'm in now, absolutely nothing will ever grow. I've become very committed to planting things and very accepting of the fact that nothing is ever going to grow. It just isn't. The soil isn't good. There are too many deer. Nothing I have grown has ever really worked. Which doesn't mean I don't try. I mean, 2 years ago, I actually planted all these fruit and nut trees. Trees are slow growing. There's really nothing you can do to make a tree grow, I have learned. I have tried. I've put fences around them. I wrap them up and stuff in the winter. I do everything I can to make the trees as happy as they're going to be. And in the meantime, at least half of them have already given up. I've got 3 of 4 hazelnuts dead, both of the pecans gone. But there are a few. There's sort of a peach tree that's teasing me a little bit, and an apple tree that's maybe one day before you retire, there'll be an apple over here. It is my job to wait in grateful anticipation. Earth, teach me humility. Earth, teach me limitation. So we planted those trees 2 autumns ago. So this is their second summer. And I worry about them a lot in the winter, and the snow and the ice are relentless. I watch out my window and I whisper to myself, spring will come. In the wintertime, we enter this state of semi-hibernation. Everything slows down. The trees lose their leaves. Annuals die. Perennials shrink back into the ground. Birds leave town. Squirrels and raccoons and groundhogs make their way into their tiny little beds so that they can just sink in for a long winter's nap. Even the fish snuggle into the mud and wait for the cold to pass. And then the defrosting begins. The birds return, the chipmunks wake up, the ducks are swimming on the pond, the dogwoods bloom, the hyacinths fill the air with sweet perfume. It doesn't matter how difficult the winter was, spring always comes, life always returns. Color and light and new life are never far away, no matter how dreary and cold and dead the winter feels. Earth, teach me regeneration. Long, cold winters can happen any time of the year. Seasons of death or illness or loss of financial security, loss of mental health, they can make any July feel like January. Long nights worrying about how you can feed your children, or long days sitting beside someone in their last days, or empty afternoons missing someone who is no longer sharing those days or nights. That can happen any time of the year, and a riot of freshly bloomed fields of daffodils won't change it. Only time heals those wounds, time and courage. The willingness to stand your ground even as the wind blows around you, even as storms blow. Healing comes from living through the painful days, from waking in the morning and facing yet another difficult day, from going to bed on nights you know there will be no sleep. Recovery is available when we weave time with great intentionality, when we risk honesty and vulnerability. Spiritual restoration can be taught by the trees. I used to live near a tree that had caught a bullet. The tree had been shot. It happened maybe 50 years before I got there. The tree very slowly, almost imperceptibly, grew around the bullet. The tree stood its ground, remained rooted in earth, and healed the broken places. The bullet remained. The tree remained. The tree continues to stand vulnerable to whatever is next. We can learn from the trees. We can learn the strength of vulnerability and the resilience needed to last a long time. There is power in knowing bad things happen, that loss is inevitable, that life is full of change and the unknown is frightening, but it is not a permanent place. Earth, teach me resignation. Earth, teach me courage. I believe these qualities are all necessary in these difficult days. We seem to be facing some major crises: the hastening erosion of our democracy, systems of slavery hiding behind the criminal justice system, mass deportation to war-torn countries, the intentional elimination of safety nets for the poor, and the exponential increase of carbon in our atmosphere, altering Earth's ability to sustain human life. And that's just a few. We can name even more. If we're going to live well, if we're going to live successfully, if we're going to live joyfully, if we're going to be active, engaged agents of change in these difficult days, we are going to need to know stillness and resignation and courage and regeneration and limitation and suffering and caring and humility. Earth, teach me to remember. And the birds seem so free as they fly above us. They sing on their perches, they leave town in the winter, they return in the summer. They experience a different kind of freedom than we do with earthbound bodies. But birds aren't anarchists. They fly looking for food and materials to build their nests where they can lay eggs and keep their babies safe. They fly to escape predators or to protect their own or to flee an oncoming storm. They experience necessity. They're free to ignore their own needs, as are we, but most of what they do because they have an instinct to survive. But they also have an instinct to help each other. When geese are ready to travel, they find other geese and they fly in a V pattern just to make the trip easier on the group. The one at the front has the hardest job, confronting the winds, navigating the travel. They take turns, each leading the way for a time and each benefiting from the power of being together. And if one goose is having trouble, she will land and two others will follow. And they'll stay with her until either she's well enough to travel again or until she dies. They don't know her, they're just traveling companions, but they stay together in times of difficulty. Earth, teach me freedom. Earth, teach me kindness. People come to worship on Sunday, bringing their hunger and broken hearts, seeking replenishment and healing. We have a deep need for rest, and summer is a time for rest. The energy of spring is behind us, the busyness of autumn before us. Summer is a time for enjoying the work accomplished, replenishing our spirits for the work yet to come. During this summertime, we can find what we need in deep breaths, in birds and trees, in fields of flowers, in rooms of friends, in the ocean side, in the sunrise, in a leisurely blooming hydrangea. And it is here, with this music, with these people, on this planet, we can find respite. Here in this sanctuary, on this shared land, we find ourselves again. Earth, teach me stillness as the grasses are stilled with light. Earth, teach me suffering as old stones suffer with memory. Earth, teach me humility as blossoms are humble with beginning. Earth, teach me caring as the mother who secures her young. Earth, teach me courage as the tree which stands alone. Earth, teach me limitation as the ant which crawls on the ground. Earth, teach me freedom as the eagle which soars in the sky. Earth, teach me resignation as the leaves which die in the fall. Earth, teach me regeneration as the seed which rises in the spring. Earth, teach me to forget myself as melted snow forgets its life. Earth, teach me to remember kindness as dry fields weep in the rain.